When joining the Paw Patrol, there was always the risk of some pup never coming back. After all, when you went into fires, dangerous locations, fought criminals, dealt with storms, and such other dangerous tasks, there was always the thought of being killed. Ryder had always made sure each of the pups were sure about joining this dangerous and risk-taking group, even at the cost of their own lives, and every one of them said yes. However, after such a perfect record and no losses of life, the idea that one of them could die never struck them for a moment, until it finally happened. Nobody, pup or human, could believe it. Everyone thought it was a prank, but it soon became clear, and the news spread throughout Adventure Bay. Marshall was dead. Not by a fire like other fire dogs before him, but by a snake. A random snake that came out of nowhere. The day after it happened, it was identified to be a black mamba snake, which was endemic to parts of sub-Saharan Africa. One of the deadliest snakes in the world, whose bite was said to kill a human in 30 minutes or less. A pup literally had no chance with a single bite, let alone 3. Everyone wondered how such a deadly and rare snake could be at Adventure Bay's woods when they weren't even close to such a place. Regardless, it didn't change the fact that Adventure Bay had lost one of its most beloved heroes, and the Paw Patrol lost one of their own. The pups all took the news as expected, with tears, hugs, and screams of denial, but each handled grief in their own way. Rocky stared at the now empty pup house that had been decorated with flowers, stuffed animals, pictures, and candles from those wishing to get their sympathies. He would stare at it from dawn to dusk, sometimes crying, sometimes saying nothing, but never moving from his spot. Zuma and Rubble, the youngest ones, never left Ryder's side. Often falling into moments of crying, the two need their father figure to hold them for comfort, or one of the older pups. Zuma would sometimes cry out Marshall's name in the middle of the night while having a nightmare. Rubble had hidden all his Apollo stuff due to it reminding him of Marshall, who was the second biggest fan next to him. Everest, despite having seen death before in the Arctic, was also heartbroken over Marshall's death. She tried to be the adult and stay strong, but one night she broke down and howled a mournful requiem below the glowing moon. Tracker, who had seen death as well, offered his prayers and even mentioned that the monkeys in the jungle carved a statue for Marshall in his honor due to Mandy's remembrance of him. Yet no two pups had it harder than Chase and Sky. Sky had been numb the first day, then endlessly crying the next before shutting herself from the world in her pup house. She barely ate or slept, only coming out to help Ryder with the funeral preparations. The sight of her made all the pups feel for her, as it was clear that losing her boyfriend broke something inside of Sky. No longer did she yip around, flip, or even speak with that joyful passion she always had. It was like a part of her died with Marshall, and the rest was slowly dying within her. Meanwhile, Chase buried himself into making sure Marshall had the best funeral Adventure Bay ever had. Working with Ryder, with help from the townspeople, he spent every day either looking after the pups or working to make the funeral as perfect as could be. Anything for his best friend. Anything for his brother. However, when the night came and there was no work to be done, everyone in the lookout could hear Chase sobbing his heart out, crying out Marshall's name. Nobody said or did anything, mostly to respect Chase's pride, but they knew he was devastated by their loss. Yet, they didn't know the whole story.
I killed him,
thought Chase, the same thought that he had for the past 4 days. Rubbing his tear-soaked eyes, Chase looked at the photo of him and Marshall at the Paw Patrol's first anniversary. It was when the two promised to be the best friends and rescuers until the very end.
And I betrayed him. I got him killed. I wished it to happen.
Chase had all but thrown the monkey's paw into the ocean when he came home. He cursed it. He cursed the gypsy dog. He cursed his wish, but he cursed himself the most. Every single moment he was awake, he could only hear the cries of Marshall screaming in pain while Sky pleaded for him to save the Dalmatian. At night, he He saw the last moments of his best friend's life before his very eyes, over and over again. There was no denying it now. The monkey's paw was real. Chase's wish had come true, but not in the way he wanted. He never wanted Marshall to die. He never wanted anyone to get hurt. He wanted Sky, but his feelings were nothing compared to the friendship he had with Marshall.
It's all my fault. I'm a murderer. I killed my best friend.
Chase wanted to confess everything, but what proof did he have? Nobody would believe him. No court would convict him. He was going to carry this sin until he himself died and was judged for killing his best friend out of jealousy. Chase even thought of ending his life right now, but he couldn't do that to the team. They were already suffering the loss of Marshall. With nothing else, Chase put everything into making Marshall's funeral as perfect as it could be. It was the only thing he could do for penance, as tomorrow he would say farewell to his best friend. With the whole town arriving for the event, even visitors from outside, it was held just outside of town square. A whole garden of flowers was arranging in red and white to symbolize Marshall's colors, while the outer area was laced with black ribbons and funeral wreaths. Banners holding both the Paw Patrol logo and Marshall's pup tag symbol waved on the lampposts, while one could see photos of Marshall smiling alone or with his friends up on display. Seats were everywhere for those wishing to join to sit, but there weren't enough, and some had to stand in the back. A stage holding multiple funeral wreaths with Marshall's name on it, as well as the words, "Rest in Peace," stood in the front of the hall, as well as a podium in the center for someone to speak. In front of it, between it and the growing crowd, was the closed red and black oak coffin that was the size for a human adult, but inside of it was none other than Marshall. Surrounding it were nearly 100 flowers of all kinds, decorating it as if it was a thing of beauty instead of sorrow. All the pups of the Paw Patrol, including Everest and Tracker, were in the front row with Ryder, Katie, Carlos, and Jake. Chase, from his seat, could see so many people and picked out more memorable ones such as Captain Turbot and his cousin Francois, Alex and his grandpa, Farmers Al and Yumi, the Princess and Earl of Barkingburg, Ace, Luke Stars, and Daring Danny X. Even old enemies like Mayor Humdinger and Sweetie were among the crowd, looking just as sad. It only showed just how much not only Marshall had touched the lives of so many people, but how the Paw Patrol did. It only further pushed the dagger of guilt into Chase's heart. However, as every tear, sob, and sniff for Marshall was because of him. He did his best not to cry on his tuxedo, but it was getting very hard to do so. His thoughts were interrupted as Ryder walked over to the casket, with every step taken as if he had a huge weight on his shoulders. Despite having seen the body and even helped prepare it, Chase was still feeling the urge to look away as Ryder slowly opened the casket for all to see. Many let out gasps or sobs, including Sky, who was being held by Everest, silently crying with her. Ryder had spent a fortune making sure Marshall's body looked good for the funeral. It was so clean that it was hard to believe that he once had a purple face while in a pile of blood, saliva, and urine. Katie had groomed him to look like a prince as he lay inside the white velvet cushions, his head resting on a large blue pillow. Some of his favorite toys and tools, like his teddy bear and pup tag, were placed around him as well as flowers. His suit was light red, matching well with his spotted fur as his paws folded gently over his stomach. If it wasn't for his eyes closed, the bright smile the corpse was displaying would have made you think Marshall was alive and well. Mayor Goodway came up on stage, dressed in black, and began her speech. Chase didn't listen to it. All he could do was focus on the peaceful corpse that lay before him. Everything about this was wrong. Marshall shouldn't be dead. No, Chase deserved to die. He had wished this, and it happened, and he couldn't change anything. He dared not to use the monkey's paw again, and even if he wanted to, it was already long gone. How would the Paw Patrol work without Marshall? Would they replace him? Could he even be replaced? Everyone was special within the Paw Patrol and fitted in a special role. Marshall was the heart of the team. He was always the happiest, the most outgoing, and the most cheerful. Every joke he made, every kind laugh, every crazy klutzy move, it all kept their spirits up. Who would keep them up now that the laughter was gone and dead? A nudge from Rocky made him wake from his thoughts as he saw the pups getting to line up in front of the casket. He had missed the whole speech, as well as Ryder's. He was too lost in his own thoughts. He solemnly got up and waited in line with the rest of the pups and Ryder. Their owner was first, as he gave a sad smile and gently patted Marshall's head.
You were a good dog, Marshall. I'll miss you. And will always remember you.
He moved on, wiping his tears as Zuma stepped forward next. He looked into the coffin and sniffed.
I just wanted to say how much I looked up to you, dude. I'm sorry. I can't.
He quickly rushed away, unable to hold his tears. Rubble was next as he looked into the coffin and stared at Marshall for a few minutes before dropping in the first issue of Apollo Comics. Without a word, Rubble moved on, looking like he wanted to follow Zuma's run, but kept himself. Everest was next as she looked down at the eternal sleeping fire pup.
I hope you're happy up there in heaven, Marshall. I know you're looking down on us, and I hope you know that we'll miss you greatly. Please be happy and be at peace.
She gently kissed his paws before leaving. Tracker was next, leaving a rose to lay in the coffin before muttering what sounded like a prayer in Spanish. When he was finished, he bowed his head, did the sign of the cross, and left. Rocky followed by, sadly looking at his friend and lowering his head.
I don't really think there is an afterlife, but if there is one, I can think of no pup who deserves it more than you.
He rubbed his eyes.
I'll miss you so much, Marshall. I thought of you as one of my best friends. I just wish we had more time together.
He looked at Sky and gave her a hug before letting her step forward. With tears streaming down her eyes, all Sky could do was look at the pup she loved with all her heart. Chase looked into those eyes, no longer feeling the jealousy that he once had, but instead only regret. Regret that he couldn't accept their love sooner. Regret that he had torn up his two best friends. A regret that he would carry forever.
I love you, Marshall,
whispered Sky as she kissed his forehead.
I'll love you forever.
She slowly walked away, leaving Chase as the last one. He walked forward, his paws echoing in his head as he stepped up. He looked down at his peaceful friend, and he saw himself in there. He saw Sky in there as well. Zuma, Rocky, Ryder, everyone. A piece of everyone in the Paw Patrol lay in that coffin with Marshall, right by his side. This wasn't just a funeral for one pup. It was a funeral for all of them, for their innocence. Every mission, every game, every challenge they faced would have this single moment in their lives forever. Nothing would ever be the same again. There would always be the thought of one of them forever gone, not enjoying life with them as they moved on with their lives. Chase hadn't just destroyed his friendship with a pup he loved like a brother. He didn't just ruin the romance and love between two souls. He shattered the team.
I'm sorry,
was all he could muster before leaving for the next person behind him to say their goodbyes. He made his way to Sky and hugged her, letting her cry on his shoulders. One by one, all the pups and Ryder joined, but it felt incomplete with only 8.